whoa, whoa.
Good morning, the holy and queer one be with you. We want to affirm everyone to be who they truly are, to step into the Holy One's fire that burns away all that says we are not good enough, and refines us by the Pentecostal fire
Are you
to
Butch?
be who exactly the great queer one
Is she gonna start
calls us
speaking in
to
swollen
be.
tongues?
Strange one, fabulous one, fluid and ever becoming
Just
one.
swollen from a busy
Do
night.
not allow us to make our ideas of you into an idol. You are as close to us as our own breath,
What?
and yet your
Looks like
essence
you're out of it.
transcends all that we can imagine. You are mother, father,
Why would they
and
do
parent.
this?
Elton John's
You are
biggest
sister,
jackass.
brother, and sibling. You are drag queen and trans
Look, they have a
man
Jew.
and gender fluid, incapable
A
of
rainbow
limiting
Jew.
your vast expressions of
The
beauty.
Jewish Shaw. What is
Yes, the
going
great
on
drag
here?
queendom of the Lord.
Why do they know the words?
Why do they? Yeah. And use him as a scapegoat. Now we get on to the motive. Why did John do this? We know that all of this stemmed from him being
I need my
angry
shirt.
over his wife leaving him and taking
Okay.
the kids. So did he
What
do
else
this
do I
out
need?
of rage? Was he
Got some shoes?
getting back at society for what he felt society had done to him? Or had his Gulf
Give
War
me these
syndrome
pants.
just simply drove him mad? Well, the problem is that even now,
Whatever.
about 20 years
Come
later,
on here.
we still don't actually know why he did this. Though there are some theories. One simple theory is
Going
that
in.
John was planning to bribe the government for money in exchange for stopping the killings, which is why he included a $10 million ransom in his calling cards. However, the most popular theory, the one that I think might be true, is that during the rampage, John was planning to eventually kill his wife and have her mixed in with the other murders. This would mean that John wouldn't be immediately considered as a suspect, as most ex-husbands are whenever a woman is killed, since she would just be seen as one of the very, very many victims of a crazed gunman. Just another needle in a stack of bodies. So John would not only get revenge on her, but since she was dead, he would get his kids back. John and Malvo have never confirmed this, but this is the theory that I feel makes the most sense. After their arrest, Malvo was charged by the Commonwealth of Virginia for 2 capital crimes. One was for an act of terrorism due to the murder of FBI analyst Linda Franklin, and another for the murder of more than one person in a 3-year period. Malvo's charges meant that he was completely screwed, and he was handed 6 life sentences without the possibility of parole. However, in April of 2021, Maryland banned life sentences for juveniles. So, Malvo sued them for relief, and the Maryland Court of Appeals agreed to review his case. And this review began in February of this year. Though Malvo's own lawyer believes that the possibility of him ever being granted parole is pretty much zero. However, a lot of people believe that Malvo himself was a victim. Malvo was groomed and taken advantage of by John, who exploited Malvo's obsession with finding a father figure, who he no doubt would have wanted to impress by doing whatever he was asked, even if he knew that what he was being asked to do was wrong. After they were caught, apparently Malvo's personality went from being like that of an indoctrinated soldier to just being a young boy again. And in later interviews with him, he said that he felt disgusted with himself and was extremely remorseful. Dead.
Yeah, it's terrible.
No
Yeah.
apology.
Terrible. I said don't buy this flamethrower. Don't buy it.
No surprise there.
Don't buy it. That's what I said.
People struggle.
But still people bought it. There's nothing I can do to stop
John
it.
is
I cannot stop them. I said don't buy it. It's a bad idea.
How many did you make?
It's dangerous. It's got wrong.
To defend
Don't buy
himself. He must have known
Still people bought it.
once
Like,
maybe
it's
once
stop.
since
How many did you make?
representing yourself is usually always a bad idea. Some people think that this was John's way of getting the last twist of the knife towards his victims, since he would be able to directly cross-examine their family members and even get to question some of the survivors of his attacks. It took some time for the witnesses to get used to being questioned by the man that tried to kill them, and some of them, as you would expect, got very emotional, either shitting themselves with fear or flying into a rage because they were forced to talk to the person who had killed their family members. Of course, Malvo and John were both eventually found guilty, except John's sentence was much harsher. Since he was the mastermind behind the whole thing, he was given the death penalty. On November the 10th, 2009, just a few hours before John was scheduled for execution, he made a plea for clemency to the governor. But his plea was denied. Before his execution by lethal injection, John refused to make a final statement. He didn't apologise, he didn't provide any explanation of why he did what he did, and he showed no remorse whatsoever for his actions. After he was pronounced dead, he was cremated and had his ashes handed to his son. Malvo will likely spend the rest of his days in prison, with every one of his appeals being shot down. I'm old enough to actually remember when all of this shit went down. And even people who weren't even from America or weren't even living in that area, they were all absolutely terrified of something like this happening. We all know to keep an eye out for dodgy people or dangers whenever we're out walking the streets, but what made this case so scary is there were no warnings, there were no signs, there was no visible danger that you could spot and then avoid. You could just be sitting there all alone, minding your own business, and then bang. Your entire life is over in a second. And you don't even get to know how it ended.
It's Count Dankula on YouTube. Everybody just subscribe.
Nowadays, when you hear the word pirate, what's the first thing that you think of? Do you think of some random guy trying to download his favourite anime for free, or do you think of a group of Somalian intellectuals trying to make an honest living for themselves? Well, 300 years ago, if you said the word pirate to somebody, they would think of only one man. A man who was feared so much that sailors would immediately surrender upon just seeing his ship. A man so terrifying that entire towns would be reduced to hysteria just from seeing his ship sailing past. A man so frightening that people genuinely believed that he was a demon from the pits of hell. Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard. But before we get into the Mad Lad, yes, it is in fact your boy, Raid Shadow Legends. The hottest game in the Play Store with almost a perfect score and over 450 champions for you to collect. And my favourite thing to do in the game is still slapping people around in the PvP arena. The champions that I am currently using are Jizo, who I have tanked right up, making him almost impossible to kill, and Doom Priest, because she can buff my team while also removing buffs from the enemy team. They are really effective characters in the PvE mode, but also PvP, because the way I've built Jizo means he is really hard to kill. It's not cheating, you just need to get good scrub. Raid have also just released the Artifact Forge, where you can craft artifacts yourself. They also have an advanced questing system that has amazing rewards. They have also just released new champions, and coming soon is the Doom Tower. 120 floors of super hard bosses and great rewards. So click my link down below to download Raid Shadow Legends, and if you're a new player you will get 50,000 silver, 50 gems, an energy refill, a clan boss key, 5 mystery shards, a 1-day XP booster, and a free champion, Executioner, who is really good for new players. These rewards are only available for the next 30 days and only to new players, and you can find these rewards here in your inbox. Because sources at the time are sketchy, to say the least, not much is actually known about Teach's early life. He's estimated to have been born roughly around 1680, and that is based purely on how old he looked when he died. We don't even know for sure if Edward Teach was even his real name, as pirates usually adopted fake names to protect their families back home. He was also guessed to have come up from a relatively well-off family, growing up either in Bristol or Punishtown in Jamaica. This would explain how Teach eventually became a sailor, because both towns were major naval hubs for Britain at the time, and having a good education would have helped him become a very skilled commander. But Teach would need far more than just education to hone his pirating skills. He would also need experience, and he probably got that experience during Queen Anne's War. In 1701, Britain declared war against France and Spain over the succession of a French prince to the Spanish throne. The fighting in Europe was called the Spanish War of Secession, but there were also battles taking place between the North American colonies, which were dubbed the Queen Anne's War. Now, beating the crap out of France and Spain, again, tends to cost a lot of money. So Britain relied heavily on the help of privateers. Privateers were basically groups of independent sailors who raided French and Spanish ships for their money. After a successful raid, they would send a big chunk of this cash back to the government and would keep what was left for themselves. Privateers are essentially sea mercenaries. Having privateers was basically a win-win for Britain. They wouldn't need to fork out all the extra cash required to expand their navy, plus they would also have a steady income from their cut of the loot. Teach became a privateer roughly around 1705, where he was said to have demonstrated an uncommon boldness and personal courage. Despite this, and despite the war lasting for another 8 years, Teach was never given the opportunity to take command of his own ship during this period. As the war came to a close in 1713, Britain managed to win territory from French Canada. Britain now owned Newfoundland, and Britain also owned Scotland's low-rate knockoff, Nova Scotia. However, the war